$73,000. That's how much I saved over 8 years working 3 jobs so my daughter could go to college. My cousin and her husband stole every single penny. Let me tell you about the 8 years before I discovered the truth, because you need to understand what they took from me. It wasn't just money. It was time. It was sleep. It was pieces of my soul. My name is Kenya, and I'm a single mother. Amara's father left when she was 2 years old. Just walked out one day and never came back. No child support. No phone calls. Nothing. So it was just me and my baby girl against the world. When Amara was 10 years old, sitting at our tiny kitchen table doing her homework, she looked up at me with those bright eyes and said, "Mama, I'm going to be a doctor someday. I'm going to take care of people like you take care of me." That's when I made a promise to myself. My baby was going to college. No matter what it took. I was already working as a night shift nurse at County General Hospital. 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., 4 nights a week. The pay was decent, but not enough. Not for college. Not for the future Amara deserved. So I added a second job. Weekend catering for a company that did weddings and corporate events. Every Saturday and Sunday, I'd serve food to people in beautiful clothes, people who probably spent more on one party than I made in 6 months. I'd smile. I'd be polite. And I'd deposit every paycheck into Amara's college fund. But it still wasn't enough. Before we go any further into this, I just want to say, if you feel a connection to these stories, a small click on that like button and subscribe would mean more to me than you know. It lets me know I'm not just speaking into the void, that you're really here with me. Alright, let's continue. When Amara turned 14, I added a third job. House cleaning. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday mornings before my nursing shift. 5 a.m. to 10 a.m., I'd clean other people's homes. Scrub their toilets. Mop their floors. Wash their dishes. People would sometimes ask me, "Kenya, how do you do it? 3 jobs? Don't you ever rest?" The truth? I didn't. I slept maybe 4 hours a day. I survived on coffee and the thought of Amara walking across a college graduation stage. Every 2 weeks, like clockwork, I'd go to the bank. I'd deposit my nursing paycheck, my catering money, my cleaning cash. I'd watch that college fund number grow. $100, $500, $1,000, $5,000, $20,000. I kept a notebook. Every single deposit, I'd write it down. Date. Amount. Balance. I'd take a photo of the deposit slip with my phone. I didn't trust anything to chance or memory. This was my daughter's future. I documented everything. Amara never knew how much I was sacrificing. She'd wake up in the morning and I'd be there making her breakfast before school. She'd come home in the afternoon and I'd help her with homework before heading to my night shift. I made sure she never felt like she was missing anything. And oh, my baby girl was brilliant. Honor roll every semester. Science Olympiad champion 3 years running. Student body president her junior year. Teachers would stop me in the hallways during parent conferences just to tell me how special she was. "Amara is going places," they'd say. With her grades and her test scores, she could get into any college she wants. Any college she wants. That phrase kept me going through the exhaustion, through the body aches, through the moments when I'd cry in my car between jobs because I was so tired I could barely see straight. 8 years. That's how long I kept this pace. From the time Amara was 10 until she was 18. 8 years of barely sleeping. 8 years of choosing between buying myself new shoes or adding another $100 to the fund. 8 years of saying no to dinners with friends, to vacations, to everything except work and Amara. By the time Amara was a senior in high school, that college fund had $73,000 in it. $73,000 earned one shift at a time, one weekend at a time, one house at a time. I was so proud of that number. That's when my cousin Veronica entered the picture. Veronica was my mother's sister's daughter. We'd grown up together, been close as kids. But as adults, our lives had gone in very different directions. She'd married Richard, a financial planner, and they lived in a big house in the suburbs. They drove nice cars. Took vacations to places I'd only seen in magazines. I'd always been happy for her. Truly. I never felt jealous. We were family. One Sunday, Veronica invited me and Amara over for dinner. It was nice. She made a beautiful meal. Richard talked about his work. Everything felt warm and supportive. After dinner, while Amara was in the other room, Veronica leaned in close. "Kenya, honey, I've been thinking about you. About how hard you work. Richard and I want to help." "Help how?" I asked. The college fund, Richard said, joining the conversation. Veronica mentioned you've been saving for years. That's incredible. But here's the thing, that money is just sitting in a regular savings account, right? Earning almost nothing in interest? I nodded. It was true. The interest rate was terrible. But it was safe. That's all I cared about. Let us manage it for you, Richard said, his voice so smooth, so confident. I'm a licensed financial planner. I can get you better returns. Tax advantages. By the time Amara goes to college, you could have 90,000, maybe even 100,000. We're family. Let us do this for you. I hesitated. Something in my gut whispered no. But I pushed it down. I don't know, I said slowly. That money, it's everything. It's 8 years of my life. Exactly, Veronica said, taking my hand. That's why you should let professionals handle it. You've worked so hard, Kenya. Let us help you work smart. We love you. We love Amara. This is what family does. Family. That word was my weakness. I was tired. So tired. I'd been carrying everything alone for so long. The thought of someone helping, even just with this one thing, felt like oxygen. Are you sure? I asked. You'd really do this for me? Of course, Richard said. We'll set up a managed account. You'll get quarterly statements. You'll see the money growing. And when Amara needs it, it'll all be there. Better than before. I looked at Veronica. My cousin. My family. She smiled at me with such warmth. Okay, I said. Okay. Let's do it. That decision, that moment of trust, that was the beginning of the end. Over the next 2 weeks, Richard helped me transfer the money. $73,000 from my savings account into an investment account he'd set up. He showed me papers. Everything looked official. Legal. Safe. You're going to be so glad you did this, he said, shaking my hand. In a few years, you're going to thank us. For the first 6 months, everything seemed fine. Every 3 months, Richard would email me a statement. The numbers looked good. The account was growing. 75,000. 77,000. 80,000. I felt such relief. Such gratitude. I'd call Veronica just to say thank you. You and Richard are saving my life, I'd tell her. I don't know what I'd do without you. That's what family is for, she'd say. But around the 1-year mark, something shifted. Subtle at first. Veronica's texts became less frequent. When I'd call, she'd be busy. Couldn't talk. Would call me back later, and then wouldn't. Richard's quarterly statements started coming late. Then later. I'd email asking for updates, and he'd respond with short, almost irritated messages. Everything's fine. Don't worry so much. Don't worry so much. As if I didn't have the right to worry about 8 years of my life. One day, about 18 months after the transfer, I called Veronica from my car between my cleaning job and my nursing shift. I had a simple question about the account. Something I'd seen on the last statement that didn't make sense. Veronica, hey, do you have a minute? Her voice was different, cold. Kenya, I'm really busy right now. Can this wait? It's just a quick question about the investment account. There's a fee I didn't understand and… Kenya. She cut me off. Richard handles all that. Everything is fine. You need to trust the process. Constantly questioning everything just shows you don't understand how investments work. I felt like I'd been slapped. I just wanted to understand. Look, we're doing you a favor. A huge favor. The least you could do is trust us instead of micromanaging. Richard went to school for this. He's a professional. You're a nurse. Stay in your lane. She hung up. I sat in my car, hands shaking. Something was wrong. I could feel it in my bones. But I didn't know what. And I was afraid to look too closely. Afraid of what I might find. So I pushed it down. Told myself I was being paranoid. Told myself Veronica was just stressed. Told myself everything was fine. I kept working. Kept saving. Kept building Amara's future. 2 years after I'd handed over the money, Amara got her college acceptance letters. She'd applied to 6 schools. She got into 5 of them. But there was one school she wanted more than anything. Hampton University. It was perfect for her pre-med program. It had the resources, the reputation, the opportunities she needed. The acceptance letter came on a Tuesday afternoon. Amara called me at work, crying with joy. Mama, I got in. I got into Hampton. They gave me a partial scholarship, $15,000 a year. I felt my heart explode with pride. My baby. My brilliant, beautiful baby. That's amazing, sweetheart. I'm so proud of you. Mama, the rest of the tuition is $45,000 for the first year. But you saved, right? You have the college fund? Yes, baby. Yes. I saved $73,000. We have more than enough. Mama, I'm going to be a doctor. I'm really going to do it. You're going to change the world, I whispered. That night, after my shift, I went home and opened my laptop. I needed to start the process of transferring money from the investment account for Amara's tuition deposit. The deadline was in 6 weeks. I logged into my original bank account first, just to check something. I don't know why. Call it instinct. The investment account wasn't showing up in my linked accounts anymore. Weird. I called the bank's customer service line. Explained the situation. The representative checked my records. Ma'am, the account you're referring to was closed 19 months ago. All funds were transferred out. My blood went cold. What? No. That can't be right. Let me check the details. Yes, ma'am. The account was liquidated. All $73,000 was transferred to an external account. What external account? Where did my money go? I don't have access to that information. You'd need to contact the account holder who received the transfer. Richard. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. I pulled up my email. Found Richard's last statement. Dated 8 months ago. Showing a balance of $82,000. But the bank was telling me the money had been gone for 19 months. Which meant that statement was fake. I called Richard's cell phone. It rang 4 times, then went to voicemail. I called Veronica. No answer. I called Richard's office number. A receptionist answered. I'm sorry, Mr. Hayes is unavailable. Can I take a message? This is Kenya Williams. I need to speak with him immediately. It's about my investment account. Mr. Hayes is with a client. I can have him call you back. When? I'm not sure. He has a full schedule today. I hung up and called Veronica again. And again. And again. On the 7th call, she finally answered. Kenya, what? I'm at work. Where's my money? My voice didn't even sound like mine. What are you talking about? The investment account. I just called the bank. They said it was closed almost 2 years ago. Where is my money? Silence. Veronica. Where is my money? Kenya, I think you're confused. You need to talk to Richard about the account details. I don't handle that. I've been calling Richard. He won't answer. Veronica, I need my money. Amara got into Hampton. I need to pay her tuition deposit in 6 weeks. Kenya. Her voice changed. Softer. Almost pitying. Honey, I think you need to check your records. You didn't give us $73,000. Everything stopped. What did you just say? When you transferred the money to us, it was maybe 20 or 30,000? And Richard invested it, but the market hasn't been great. You know how it is. Investments go up and down. I gave you $73,000. I have records. I have every deposit slip. Every transfer confirmation. Kenya, sweetie, I think you're misremembering. You were so stressed back then. Working all those jobs. Maybe you thought you saved more than you did? It happens. Are you calling me crazy? I'm saying maybe you need to double check your numbers. And honestly, the way you're talking to me right now? Maybe you need to see someone. Talk to a therapist or something. This level of paranoia isn't healthy. She hung up. I sat in my dark living room and I understood. They stole it. Veronica and Richard stole 8 years of my life. And they thought I was too tired, too uneducated, too trusting to fight back. They were wrong. The thing about thieves is, they always underestimate their victims. Veronica and Richard thought I was just a tired single mother. Too exhausted to pay attention. Too trusting to question. Too unsophisticated to understand finance. They had no idea I'd been documenting everything for 8 years. The morning after that phone call with Veronica, I woke up at 4 a.m. Not because of my alarm. Because I couldn't sleep. My mind was racing, replaying every conversation, every statement, every moment I should have seen the truth. I made coffee and sat at my kitchen table. The same table where Amara had told me she wanted to be a doctor. The same table where I'd planned every budget, every sacrifice, every deposit for 8 years. And then I remembered the box. In my bedroom closet, on the top shelf, there was a shoebox. Inside that box was every single piece of paper related to Amara's college fund. Every deposit slip. Every bank statement. Every transfer confirmation. Every email from Richard. I'd kept them because, I don't know. Maybe because when you work as hard as I did for something, you want proof it existed. You want evidence of your sacrifice. I pulled down the box and spread everything across my kitchen table. 8 years of documentation stared back at me. The first deposit slip. March 15, 2015. $150 from my nursing paycheck. My handwriting on the memo line, for Amara's future. Another slip. Another. Week after week, month after month, year after year. Some deposits were just $50. Some were $300. Whatever I could scrape together between rent and groceries and keeping the lights on. I'd also photographed every single deposit with my phone. Backed them up to the cloud. Because phones can break, but the cloud remembers everything. I started adding up the numbers. Not from memory. From actual documented proof. March 2015 through December 2015, $8,400. January 2016 through December 2016, $9,200. That was the year I added the catering job. January 2017 through December 2017, $11,600. The year I added house cleaning. On and on. Year after year. Every penny accounted for. Every deposit proven. By the time I reached the transfer date to Richard's investment account, the total was $73,214. Not $20,000. Not $30,000. $73,000. I had proof. Undeniable, documented, photographed proof. But I needed more than that. I needed to understand what they'd done with my money. I opened my laptop and started searching. Richard's financial planning company had a website, professional photos, testimonials, a fancy office address in the financial district. I dug deeper. Searched his name with complaints and fraud and scam. Nothing came up. He looked legitimate. On the surface. Then I checked social media. Veronica's Instagram was public. I scrolled back 2 years. Back to when they first took my money. And there it was. The evidence of where my money went. 2 months after they took my $73,000, Veronica posted photos from Paris. The Eiffel Tower. The Louvre. Expensive restaurants. Caption, living our best life. So blessed. 4 months later, a new car. A Mercedes. Shiny and black. Richard standing next to it, grinning. Caption, worked hard for this. Dreams do come true. 6 months later, a kitchen renovation. Marble countertops. High-end appliances. Caption from Veronica, finally got the kitchen of my dreams. My amazing husband made it happen. Month after month. Luxury vacations. Designer handbags. Expensive watches. A boat. A timeshare in Miami. I sat there staring at my screen, and I felt something cold settle in my chest. They didn't invest my money. They spent it. On themselves. On their lifestyle. On things they wanted but couldn't afford. And they thought I'd never figure it out. I took screenshots of everything. Every post. Every photo. Every date and caption. I created a folder on my computer labeled evidence and saved it all. Then I did something I should have done months ago. I called the bank that supposedly held my investment account and asked for a complete transaction history. Ma'am, as I mentioned before, that account was closed. But I can send you a final statement showing the closing transaction. Please. Send it to my email. 10 minutes later, it arrived. 1 page. Very simple. Very clear. Account opened, September 5, 2021. Account closed, April 22, 2023. Final transfer, $73,214 to account ending in 8743. That account number. I'd never seen it before. It wasn't the investment account Richard had told me about. It was something else. I called Richard's office again. This time, I didn't identify myself. Hi, I'm trying to verify an account number for a wire transfer. Can you confirm if account ending in 8743 belongs to Richard Hayes? The receptionist clicked on her keyboard. I'm sorry, I can't give out account information over the phone. I understand. Let me ask differently. Is that a business account or personal account? More clicking. That would be a personal account, but again, I really can't. Thank you. That's all I needed. I hung up. Personal account. Richard transferred my money from the investment account directly into his personal bank account. Not investments. Not stocks. Not bonds. Just, straight into his pocket. That's theft. Plain and simple theft. I needed help. Professional help. But lawyers cost money. Money I didn't have because Veronica and Richard had stolen it all. I searched for free legal consultation and found a community legal aid clinic that offered 1 hour of free advice for low-income families. I qualified. Barely. But I qualified. I made an appointment for the next day. That night, I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I just kept staring at the documents spread across my table. 8 years of my life, proof of every sacrifice, evidence of every theft. Amara came home from her after-school job at the library. She saw my face and knew immediately something was wrong. Mama? What happened? I couldn't tell her. Not yet. Not until I knew what I could do about it. Nothing, baby. Just tired. Long day. She hugged me tight. Only 6 more weeks until I have to send in my deposit for Hampton. I'm so excited, Mama. I can't believe it's really happening. My heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. Me too, sweetheart. Me too. The next morning, I went to the legal aid clinic. The lawyer's name was Patricia. She was young, maybe 30, with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. I spread out all my documents on her desk. Bank statements, deposit slips, photos, screenshots of Veronica's social media, the transfer records. Everything. Patricia went through it methodically, page by page. When she finished, she looked up at me. Ms. Williams, this is fraud. Clear, documented fraud. You have excellent records. Better than most cases I see. Can I get my money back? Yes. But it's going to take time. You need to file a police report first. Then we can pursue civil action. With this level of documentation, you have a strong case. How long will it take? Patricia hesitated. Months. Maybe longer. The legal system moves slowly. I don't have months. My daughter needs to send her college deposit in 6 weeks. If we don't send it, she loses her spot. I understand. But Ms. Williams, there's something else you should know. I'm going to do some research on Richard Hayes. Because if he did this to you, he might have done it to others. Others? Financial fraud is rarely a one-time thing. People who steal this way? They have a pattern. They target people they think won't fight back. Family members. Friends. People who trust them. My blood ran cold. My mother. What about your mother? My mother. Gloria. She's 74 years old. About 3 years ago, Veronica convinced her to let Richard manage her retirement savings. Said he'd make it grow. I remember my mama was so happy. Said family was taking care of her. Patricia leaned forward. Do you know how much your mother gave him? No. But I can find out. That evening, I drove to my mother's house. She lived in a small apartment about 20 minutes away. I visited every Sunday, but this couldn't wait. Kenya. What a nice surprise. She hugged me at the door. Come in, baby. I just made some tea. We sat at her little kitchen table. I took a deep breath. Mama, I need to ask you something. About Richard and Veronica. About your retirement money. Her face changed. Just slightly. A flicker of something. Worry? Fear? What about it? How much did you give them to invest? She looked down at her teacup. Why are you asking? Mama, please. It's important. How much? $30,000. It was most of my retirement savings from the hospital. But Richard said he could make it grow. Give me a better life in my old age. When's the last time you saw a statement? Silence. Mama? About a year ago. I asked Veronica for an update last month. She said everything was fine. Said the money was growing. Said I shouldn't worry so much. The same words she'd said to me. Mama, I need you to call your bank tomorrow. Ask them to check if that investment account is still open. Kenya, what's going on? You're scaring me. I reached across the table and took her hand. Mama, I think they stole from both of us. I think they stole from me, and they stole from you, and I think we're not the only ones. My mother's eyes filled with tears. But they're family. I know, Mama. I know. The next day, my mother called her bank. The account had been closed 2 years ago. All $30,000 transferred out. Gone. I called Patricia immediately. It's not just me. They took $30,000 from my mother too. That's elder financial abuse. That's a felony. Kenya, we need to move fast. Do you know anyone else they might have targeted? I thought about it. Who else had Richard and Veronica been helping? Then I remembered. Agnes. A woman from our church. Older lady, widowed, lived alone. About 2 years ago, she'd mentioned that Veronica's husband was helping her with some financial planning. I called Agnes that evening. Hi, Ms. Agnes. This is Kenya, Gloria's daughter. I hope I'm not calling too late. Oh, Kenya. Not at all, sweetheart. How are you? I'm well, thank you. Ms. Agnes, I have an unusual question. Did you ever give any money to Richard Hayes to invest? Long pause. Why do you ask? Because I think he might have stolen from me and my mother. And if he did it to us, he might have done it to others. Agnes's voice got very quiet. $42,000. That was 3 years ago. He said he was investing it for me. I haven't seen a statement in over a year. When I ask, Veronica says everything is fine. My hands clenched into fists. Ms. Agnes, I think your money is gone. Same as mine. Same as my mother's. But that was everything. My late husband's life insurance. Our savings. Everything. I know. I'm so sorry. But I'm gathering evidence. I'm going to the police. Will you help me? Will you be a witness? Yes, she said, her voice shaking. Yes, I'll help. Those people need to pay for what they've done. Over the next week, I found 2 more victims. A cousin of Veronica's on her father's side. A co-worker of Richard's who'd trusted him with her inheritance. 5 families. 5 stolen nest eggs. When I added it all up, Richard and Veronica had taken over $400,000. $400,000 from people who trusted them. From family. From friends. From people who couldn't afford to lose a single penny. I documented everything. Created a spreadsheet. Names. Amounts. Dates. Transfer records. Every victim's story. Patricia looked at the file I'd built and smiled. Not a happy smile. A warrior smile. Kenya, this is massive. This is organized fraud. This is a pattern of predatory behavior. With this many victims and this much documentation, the police and the district attorney are going to take this very seriously. So what do? We go to the police. Tomorrow. We file a criminal complaint. Fraud. Embezzlement. Elder abuse. And then we file a civil suit for full restitution. Will we win? Patricia looked me straight in the eye. With this evidence? Yes. You're going to win. And they're going to prison. That night, I called all the victims. My mother. Agnes. The others. I told them what we were going to do. Tomorrow, we fight back. Together. And for the first time in weeks, I felt something other than despair. I felt power. There's a special kind of strength that comes from knowing you're not alone anymore. When you realize other people were hurt the same way you were, when you stand together, that's when victims become witnesses. And witnesses become warriors. The police station was in downtown, a gray concrete building that felt cold and intimidating. But when I walked through those doors, I wasn't alone. My mother Gloria was with me. Agnes from church. Richard's coworker Michelle. Veronica's cousin David. And Patricia, my lawyer, carrying 3 thick folders of documentation. 5 families. $400,000. Years of trust betrayed. The desk sergeant looked up as we approached. Can I help you? Patricia stepped forward. We're here to file a criminal complaint. Fraud, embezzlement, and elder financial abuse. We have multiple victims and substantial documentation. The sergeant's eyebrows went up. Let me get a detective. 20 minutes later, we were sitting in a conference room with Detective Maria Torres. She was in her 40s, sharp-eyed, and she listened without interrupting as Patricia laid out the case. 5 victims. Same perpetrators. Richard and Veronica Hayes. Same method of operation every time. They target family members and friends. Offer to invest their money. Provide fake statements showing growth. Then they close the accounts and transfer all funds to personal accounts. Total theft exceeds $400,000. Detective Torres looked at each of us. And you all have documentation? We nodded. Patricia opened the first folder. Kenya Williams. $73,000 stolen over 2 years. Here are 8 years of deposit slips, bank statements, transfer confirmations, and screenshots of the defendant spending the money on luxury items. She opened the second folder. Gloria Williams, Kenya's mother. $30,000. Same pattern. Fake statements. Account closed without consent. Elder abuse charges apply here. Third folder. Fourth. Fifth. Each one a complete case. Each one devastating proof. Detective Torres went through everything methodically. When she finished, she looked up with an expression I couldn't quite read. This is one of the most well-documented fraud cases I've ever seen. Ms. Williams. She looked at me. You did this? You gathered all this? Yes, ma'am. I kept records of every deposit I made for 8 years. And when I realized what they'd done, I found the other victims. We all kept records. We all have proof. The perpetrators made a mistake, Patricia added. They assumed their victims wouldn't fight back, wouldn't compare notes, wouldn't have documentation. They were wrong on all counts. Detective Torres stood up. I'm opening an investigation immediately. This level of systematic fraud, this is serious. I'll need formal statements from each of you. Then we'll bring in Richard and Veronica Hayes for questioning. How long will this take? I asked. My voice was steadier than I felt. With this much evidence? Not long. We'll move quickly. I'll also be contacting the State Financial Regulatory Board. If Richard Hayes is a licensed financial planner, his license needs to be suspended pending investigation. My mother reached over and squeezed my hand. Agnes had tears in her eyes. Michelle, Richard's co-worker, looked like she could barely breathe with relief. We'd been carrying this alone. Each of us thinking we were the only one. Each of us ashamed, confused, blaming ourselves. But together? Together we were undeniable. Over the next 3 hours, we each gave formal statements. The detective recorded everything. Every detail. Every transaction. Every lie we'd been told. When it was my turn, I told her everything. The 8 years of sacrifice. The 3 jobs. The trust I'd placed in family. The way Veronica had called me paranoid when I asked questions. The way they'd tried to make me think I was misremembering, confused, unstable. That's called gaslighting, Detective Torres said. It's a common tactic in financial abuse. Make the victim doubt their own memory and perception. But you kept records. That's what saved you. I kept records because that money was my daughter's future, I said. Every dollar represented hours of my life. I couldn't afford to forget a single one. After the statements, Detective Torres walked us out. I'll be in touch within 48 hours. We're going to execute a search warrant on their home and business. We'll seize financial records. And then we're bringing them in. Will they go to jail? Agnes asked, her voice small and hopeful. If everything you've told me is accurate, and I believe it is? Yes. They're going to prison. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept imagining the moment when police would knock on Veronica and Richard's door. The moment they'd realize their perfect life was built on stolen dreams. Part of me felt guilty for that satisfaction, but a bigger part of me felt something else. Justice. 2 days later, my phone rang. Detective Torres. Ms. Williams, we executed the search warrant this morning. You need to know what we found. What? Evidence of more victims. At least 8 more families. Richard Hayes kept detailed records of everyone he'd stolen from. Bank account numbers. Transfer amounts. Fake statement templates. Everything. My stomach dropped. 8 more? The total is now over $600,000. This is bigger than we thought. Much bigger. The district attorney is personally taking this case. Richard and Veronica Hayes are being arrested this afternoon. Arrested? Today? Yes. Based on the evidence, we have more than enough for multiple felony charges. Fraud. Embezzlement. Elder abuse. Forgery for the fake statements. This is serious prison time, Ms. Williams. I sat down hard on my couch. What happens now? They'll be arraigned. Bail will be set. The DA will argue for high bail given the flight risk and the severity of the charges. Then we prepare for trial. But honestly? With this much evidence, I expect them to take a plea deal. What about our money? That's trickier. Criminal restitution will be ordered, but actually recovering the money depends on what assets they have left. The DA's office will work on asset seizure. Their house, cars, bank accounts, everything will be frozen and liquidated to pay victims back. After I hung up, I called my mother, called Agnes, called all the other victims, told them what was happening. They're being arrested today. It's really happening. My mother cried. Agnes praised God. Michelle said she couldn't believe justice was actually coming. But I needed to do one more thing. Something I'd been planning since the moment I realized what they'd done. I needed to confront Veronica myself. I knew it was risky. Patricia would tell me not to. The detective would probably advise against it. But I didn't care. Before the police arrested them, I wanted Veronica to know that I knew. That I'd figured it out. That the confused single mother had outsmarted them both. I drove to Veronica's house that afternoon. The big house in the suburbs. The house my money had helped pay for. I rang the doorbell. Veronica answered, and when she saw me, her face went pale. Kenya, what are you doing here? I came to tell you something, I said calmly. The police are coming for you. Today. They have everything, Veronica. Every stolen dollar. Every fake statement. Every victim. All 13 families you and Richard stole from. Her mouth opened. Closed. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. You stole $73,000 from me. $30,000 from my mother. Over $600,000 total. You thought I was too tired and too trusting to figure it out. You were wrong. Kenya, you're confused. Stop, I said, my voice hard. Stop lying. I have 8 years of deposit slips. I have transfer records. I have screenshots of your Instagram showing you spending my money on vacations and cars and kitchen renovations. I have testimony from 12 other families you scammed. The detective said it's the most well-documented fraud case she's ever seen. Veronica's confident mask cracked. You went to the police? I went to the police. I found all your other victims. We all went together. We all gave statements. And in about. I checked my watch, 2 hours, they're going to arrest you and Richard for fraud, embezzlement, and elder abuse. Elder abuse? You stole from my 74-year-old mother. From Agnes, who's 79. From others. That's a felony, Veronica. You're going to prison. Richard appeared behind her. Kenya, I think you should leave. I looked at him. This man who'd smiled at me, shaken my hand, promised to help me while he was stealing my daughter's future. 8 years, I said quietly. I worked 3 jobs for 8 years. I slept 4 hours a night. I cleaned toilets and served food to rich people and took care of sick patients. Every single dollar I earned, I saved for my daughter. And you stole it. You stole 8 years of my life. We invested your money, Richard started. The market. You transferred it to your personal bank account. I have the records. The bank confirmed it. You didn't invest anything. You spent it on yourselves. On your lifestyle. On things you couldn't afford. His face went red. You can't prove. I can prove everything. That's the problem, Richard. You thought you were smarter than me. You thought a night shift nurse with 3 jobs wouldn't keep good records. You were wrong. Veronica's hands were shaking. What's going to happen to us? You're going to be arrested. You're going to stand trial. And you're going to prison. The detective said with this much evidence, you're looking at 7 to 10 years, each. Kenya, please, Veronica's voice broke. We're family. Don't do this. We can work something out. We can pay you back. With what? I asked coldly. You spent it all. And even if you hadn't, it's too late. This isn't about money anymore. This is about justice. You didn't just steal from me. You stole from my mother. From elderly people who trusted you. From a single mother trying to give her daughter a better life. You're predators. And predators belong in cages. I turned to leave, then looked back one more time. Oh, and Veronica? That thing you said to me on the phone? About how I was confused and paranoid and needed to see a therapist? The detective recorded my statement. That's evidence of gaslighting. It's going to help convict you. I walked back to my car and drove away. In my rearview mirror, I saw Veronica collapse against Richard, both of them standing in the doorway of the house my money had helped them keep. 3 hours later, Detective Torres called again. They're in custody. Both of them. Bail is set at $250,000 each. They couldn't make it. They're staying in jail until trial. Good, I said. And I meant it. That night, Amara came home and found me sitting at the kitchen table, looking at her acceptance letter to Hampton University. Mama? You okay? I looked up at my beautiful daughter. My brilliant girl who deserved the world. Baby, I need to tell you something. About the college fund. I told her everything. The theft, the investigation, the arrest. I watched her face go from confusion to shock to anger to grief. They stole your money? All of it? All of it. But how am I going to go to college? The deposit is due in 4 weeks. I don't know yet, baby. But I'm fighting to get it back. We have a strong case. The detective says we'll win. But it might take time. Amara was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something that broke my heart and put it back together at the same time. Mama, you worked 8 years for that money. You sacrificed everything. I can wait. I can take a gap year. I can work. We'll figure it out together. I pulled her into a hug and cried. Not tears of defeat. Tears of pride. My daughter understood sacrifice. She understood persistence. She understood that sometimes justice takes time. But she also understood that we fight for what's right, no matter how long it takes. You know what happens when predators get caught? They try to play victim. Veronica and Richard sat in jail for 3 days before Richard's parents posted bail. $250,000 each. $500,000 total. Money they had to borrow against their house. The irony wasn't lost on me. Richard's parents going into debt to bail out their son, who'd stolen from families to avoid debt himself. The arraignment was set for the following week. Patricia told me I didn't have to attend, but I wanted to be there. I wanted to look them in the eyes in a courtroom. I wanted them to see me. To see all of us. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Cold. Institutional. But when I walked in with my mother, Agnes, and the other victims, it felt like we filled the entire space with our presence. Veronica and Richard sat at the defense table with their lawyer. An expensive-looking man in a tailored suit. Someone they clearly couldn't afford. Probably paid for with more borrowed money. When Veronica saw us, her face crumbled. She looked like she'd aged 10 years in 3 days. Her hair wasn't done. Her makeup was minimal. She wore a simple dress instead of her usual designer clothes. Richard stared straight ahead, jaw clenched, refusing to look at anyone. The judge entered. Judge Barbara Whitmore. A black woman in her 60s with silver hair and eyes that had seen every kind of lie. The people versus Richard Hayes and Veronica Hayes, the clerk announced. Multiple counts of fraud, embezzlement, forgery, and elder financial abuse. The prosecutor stood. A sharp woman named Sandra Chen. Your Honor, the people are charging the defendants with 13 counts of fraud in the first degree, 13 counts of embezzlement, 5 counts of elder financial abuse, and multiple counts of forgery. The total amount stolen exceeds $600,000 from 13 separate victims over a period of 4 years. Judge Whitmore looked at the defense attorney. How do your clients plead? Not guilty, Your Honor. These charges are based on misunderstandings. My clients are financial professionals who were trying to help family and friends. Some investments didn't perform as expected, but that's not fraud. That's the market. I felt my mother's hand grip mine. Agnes made a small sound of disbelief. The prosecutor didn't miss a beat. Your Honor, the evidence clearly shows these were not failed investments. The defendants transferred victim funds directly into personal accounts. They created forged statements to hide the theft. They spent the money on luxury items and personal expenses. We have bank records, transfer documents, and testimony from 13 victims. This is systematic fraud, not failed investments. I've reviewed the initial evidence, Judge Whitmore said. And I must say, the paper trail here is remarkably clear. Mr. Hayes, Mrs. Hayes, you should know that if this case goes to trial, the evidence against you is substantial. Richard's lawyer tried again. Your Honor, my clients have deep ties to the community. They're not flight risks. We ask for release on their own recognizance. Absolutely not, the prosecutor countered. These defendants stole over $600,000. They have the means and motive to flee. We request bail remain at $250,000 each. Judge Whitmore thought for a moment. Bail will remain as set. Trial date is set for 8 weeks from today. In the meantime, all defendant assets are frozen pending restitution determination. Mr. and Mrs. Hayes, you are prohibited from contacting any of the victims. Violation will result in immediate incarceration. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor, they both mumbled. As we left the courtroom, I heard Veronica crying behind us. Heard Richard's lawyer telling them to stay strong and that they could fight this. But outside in the hallway, Sandra Chen, the prosecutor, pulled our group aside. I need to be honest with you. This case is strong. Very strong. But there's a possibility they'll try to negotiate a plea deal. What does that mean? My mother asked. It means instead of going to trial, they might plead guilty to reduced charges in exchange for a guaranteed prison sentence. It would be faster. You'd get your restitution order sooner. But the sentence might be shorter than if we went to trial and won. How much shorter? I asked. Trial could get them 10 to 12 years each. A plea deal might be 7 years. Agnes spoke up, her voice shaking but determined. I want them to admit what they did. I want to hear them say they stole from us. I don't care if it takes longer. The other victims nodded in agreement. We want a trial, I said. We want everyone to hear what they did. Sandra smiled. That's what I was hoping you'd say. Because honestly, with your documentation, we're going to destroy them in court. Over the next 6 weeks, Sandra and her team prepared the case. They interviewed each victim multiple times. They brought in forensic accountants who traced every stolen dollar. They created timelines showing the systematic nature of the fraud. And they found something else. Something that made the case even stronger. Richard had been doing this longer than we thought. Before he stole from us, he'd scammed 3 other families 5 years ago. Different city. Same method. He'd been caught then too, But those victims had accepted a small settlement and signed non-disclosure agreements. That establishes pattern, Sandra explained. This wasn't a one-time mistake. This is who he is. A serial fraudster. 2 weeks before trial, Richard's lawyer called Sandra. They wanted to discuss a plea. Sandra called all the victims together. We met in her office, a small room filled with case files and coffee cups. They're offering to plead guilty to all charges in exchange for a recommended sentence of 7 years each. They'd pay full restitution. You'd get your money back faster. But you wouldn't get your day in court. We looked at each other. 13 families. 13 different stories. All connected by the same betrayal. My mother spoke first. How fast would we get our money back with a plea deal? Asset liquidation would start immediately. Their house, cars, everything would be sold. You'd likely see money within 6 months. And if we go to trial? Could be a year or more. But they'd likely get longer sentences. I thought about Amara. About her acceptance letter to Hampton sitting on my kitchen table. About the deadline we'd already missed. About her gap year working at the library, putting her dreams on hold. I want to ask something, I said. In this plea deal, do they have to admit what they did? Publicly? Yes. They'd have to allocate. That means standing in court and admitting to each crime in detail. And it goes on their permanent record? They can never work in finance again? Correct. They'd be convicted felons. Richard would lose his financial planning license permanently. I looked at the other victims. At Agnes, who'd lost her late husband's life insurance. At Michelle, who'd lost her inheritance. At my mother, who'd lost her retirement security. What do you all think? I asked. One by one, they spoke. I want my money back for my grandchildren, Agnes said. 7 years in prison is enough for me. I need the money to survive, Michelle added. I can't wait a year. My mother looked at me. Kenya, you decide. You're the one who found us all. You're the one who fought for us. We'll support whatever you choose. I closed my eyes and thought about everything that had led to this moment. The 8 years of sacrifice. The 3 jobs. The exhaustion. The betrayal. The anger. But also, the justice. The vindication. The proof that I wasn't crazy or confused or paranoid. I'd already won. The moment they were arrested, I'd won. Now it was about what would help us heal. What would help us rebuild. Take the deal, I said. 7 years is enough. We need our money back. We need to move forward with our lives. Sandra nodded. I'll let them know. The plea hearing is scheduled for next Friday. That Friday, we all returned to court. But this time felt different. This wasn't the beginning of a fight. This was the end of one. Judge Whitmore took the bench. Richard and Veronica stood with their lawyer. Mr. Hayes, Mrs. Hayes, I understand you wish to enter guilty pleas? Yes, Your Honor, their lawyer said. Very well. Mr. Hayes, how do you plead to 13 counts of fraud in the first degree? Richard's voice was barely audible. Guilty. How do you plead to 13 counts of embezzlement? Guilty. How do you plead to 5 counts of elder financial abuse? His voice broke. Guilty. The judge went through each charge. Each one, Richard and Veronica admitted. Out loud. On the record. In front of everyone. Then came the allocation. The part where they had to explain what they did. Mr. Hayes, tell the court what you did. Richard cleared his throat. He still couldn't look at us. I told family members and friends that I would invest their money. Instead, I transferred their money to my personal accounts. I created false investment statements to hide what I'd done. I spent their money on personal expenses. I did this to 13 families over 4 years. Total amount stolen was $647,000. Mrs. Hayes? Veronica was crying. I helped my husband. I knew what he was doing. I convinced people to trust us. I lied to them when they asked questions. I told them they were confused when they suspected the truth. I spent money I knew was stolen. I'm guilty of everything. Judge Whitmore's face was hard. You both betrayed the trust of your own family. You stole from elderly people. You stole from a single mother trying to send her daughter to college. You are predators who targeted the vulnerable. She paused, letting that sink in. The court accepts your guilty pleas. Sentencing will be in 30 days. Until then, you'll remain free on bail. But let me be very clear. When you return for sentencing, you will be going directly to prison. Pack your affairs. Say your goodbyes. Because 7 years is a long time to think about what you've done. As we left the courtroom, I saw Veronica's parents in the hallway. Her mother was crying. Her father looked devastated. He approached me hesitantly. Ms. Williams? I'm Veronica's father. I just want to say, I'm so sorry. If I'd known what they were doing. You couldn't have known, I said. They were very good at hiding it. Still. What they did to you. To your mother. It's unforgivable. I'm ashamed. I looked at this elderly man, carrying the weight of his daughter's crimes. Your daughter made her choices, I said quietly. You don't have to carry that shame. That's hers to bear. 30 days later, sentencing day arrived. The courtroom was packed. All 13 victim families. Media. Supporters. Judge Whitmore didn't waste time. Mr. Hayes and Mrs. Hayes, you have pleaded guilty to some of the most callous financial crimes I've seen in my career. You didn't steal from strangers. You stole from people who loved you, who trusted you, who came to you in vulnerability, and you exploited that vulnerability for personal gain. She looked directly at them. 7 years in federal prison for each of you. Full restitution of $647,000. All assets will be liquidated and distributed to victims proportionally. You will never work in financial services again. You will carry these felony convictions for the rest of your lives. She banged her gavel. Bailiff, take them into custody. Veronica sobbed as the bailiff put handcuffs on her wrists. Richard's face was blank, emotionless. They were led away through a side door. And just like that, it was over. Outside the courthouse, Sandra Chin gathered all the victims together. The asset liquidation starts this week. Their house is already listed. Cars are being auctioned. Bank accounts seized. You should start seeing restitution payments within 4 to 6 months. All of it? Agnes asked. We'll get all our money back? The house alone is worth enough to cover most of it. Combined with their other assets, yes. You'll get everything back. It might take a year for the final payments, but you will be made whole. I felt my mother hug me from one side, Agnes from the other. Michelle was crying. Other victims were smiling, some for the first time in months. We'd done it. Together. We'd fought back. And we'd won. That night, I came home and found Amara studying at the kitchen table. She looked up when I walked in. Mama? How did it go? They're in prison. 7 years each. And we're getting our money back. Amara stood up slowly. All of it? All of it. It'll take a few months. But yes. All of it. So I can go to Hampton? I smiled through my tears. Yes, baby. You can go to Hampton. Maybe not this semester. But next semester. Or next year. Whenever the money comes through. You're going to be a doctor. Just like you dreamed. She ran to me and hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. You did this, Mama. You fought for me. You didn't give up. I'll never give up on you, I whispered. Never. You want to know the strangest thing about justice? It doesn't erase the pain. It doesn't give back the time you lost. But it does something else. It gives you permission to believe in yourself again. 4 months after Richard and Veronica went to prison, I received a check in the mail. $58,312. The first restitution payment from the liquidation of their assets. I sat at my kitchen table and stared at that check for 20 minutes. Just stared at it. 8 years of my life, 3 jobs. Countless hours of exhaustion and sacrifice. And here it was. Not all of it yet, but enough. Enough to start rebuilding. I called Amara at work. She was on her break at the library. Baby, the first payment came through. I heard her sharp intake of breath. How much? 58,000. More coming later, but this is enough for your first year at Hampton. Tuition, room and board, books. Everything. Silence on the other end. Then I heard her crying. Mama, are you serious? I can really go? You can really go, sweetheart. Spring semester starts in 6 weeks. If you still want to. If I still want to? She laughed through her tears. Mama, I've been dreaming about this every single night. Yes, I want to go. That afternoon, we called Hampton University's admissions office together. Explained the situation. The theft. The court case. The restitution. The admissions counselor was so kind. Ms. Williams, we've been holding Amara's spot. We heard about what happened through the news coverage of the trial. We wanted to give her every chance to join us. Can she start in January? Amara grabbed my hand so tight it hurt. Yes, she said. Yes, I can start in January. When we hung up, my daughter looked at me with tears streaming down her face. It's really happening, Mama. I'm really going to be a doctor. You're really going to be a doctor, I repeated. And you're going to be amazing. The next few weeks were a blur of preparation. We went shopping for dorm supplies. Bought textbooks. Filled out financial aid forms for the remaining semesters. Applied for scholarships. And I made a decision. A big one. I quit one of my jobs. The house cleaning. I'd been doing it for 8 years, and my body was tired. My soul was tired. With Amara's first year covered and more restitution coming, I could afford to step back. Just a little. I kept my nursing job at the hospital. That was my career, my passion. And I kept the weekend catering, because I actually enjoyed it. But those early morning hours scrubbing someone else's floors? Those were done. For the first time in 8 years, I had mornings to myself. I could sleep past 5 a.m. I could have coffee slowly instead of gulping it down between jobs. I could breathe. My mother noticed the change immediately. "Kenya, you look different. Lighter somehow." "I feel lighter, Mama. Like I've been carrying a boulder on my back for years, and someone finally lifted it off." "That's what justice does," she said wisely. "It doesn't fix everything, but it lets you put down the weight." 3 weeks before Amara was scheduled to leave for Hampton, I received the second restitution check, $15,000. The sale of Richard and Veronica's cars and jewelry. I put it directly into a savings account for Amara's remaining college years. This time I was the only one with access. No family helping. No financial planners. Just me and a simple savings account at a bank I trusted. Patricia, my lawyer, called to update me on the case. The house sold. Final restitution payment will be coming in about 6 weeks. With everything combined, you'll receive your full $73,000 plus interest and emotional distress damages. Probably around $82,000 total. And my mother? Agnes? The others? Everyone's getting paid back in full. The Hayes family had more assets than we initially thought. Plus Richard's parents contributed money to the restitution fund. They felt responsible, even though legally they weren't. That was kind of them. Veronica's father told me something, Patricia said quietly. He said you were gracious to him after the sentencing. That you told him he didn't have to carry his daughter's shame. He never forgot that. I remembered that conversation. The look in that elderly man's eyes. The weight he was carrying. He was a victim too, I said. In a different way. His daughter betrayed him just like she betrayed us. The day came to take Amara to Hampton University. We loaded her belongings into my car early in the morning. It wasn't much. Some clothes. Her laptop. Bedding. Books. But to me, it looked like everything. My mother came with us for the 3-hour drive. Agnes insisted on coming too. "I want to see that brilliant girl off to her future," she said. In the car, Amara was quiet. Nervous. Excited. All of it at once. "You scared, baby?" I asked. A little. But more excited than scared. "Mama, I keep thinking, what if they'd won? What if you hadn't fought back? I'd be working at the library right now instead of going to college. But I did fight back. We all did. And you know what that taught you?" "What?" "That when someone tries to steal your future, you don't let them. You document. You gather evidence. You find your people. And you fight." Agnes leaned forward from the back seat. "Your mama saved all of us, Amara. Not just you. She found us. United us. Gave us strength. She's a warrior." "I know," Amara said, looking at me with such pride it made my heart ache. "She's my hero." We arrived at Hampton's campus just before noon. The place was beautiful. Historic buildings. Tree-lined paths. Students everywhere, laughing and talking and living their dreams. We helped Amara move into her dorm room. A small space she'd share with a roommate named Jasmine, a nursing major from Atlanta. They hit it off immediately. When everything was unpacked, when the posters were on the walls and the bed was made and everything was perfect, it was time to say goodbye. Amara walked us to the car. I could see her fighting tears. "Mama, I don't know how to thank you. For everything. For working so hard. For fighting for me. For never giving up. Baby, you don't thank me. You live. You study. You become the doctor you were meant to be. You help people. That's how you thank me. I'm going to make you so proud." "You already have," I whispered, pulling her into a hug. "Every single day of your life, you've made me proud." My mother hugged her next. "You call your grandmother every week, you hear me?" "I will, Grandma. I promise." Agnes hugged her last. "I'm going to be praying for you every single day. You're going to do great things, sweet girl." We got in the car and I started the engine. Amara stood on the curb, waving. As we pulled away, I looked in the rearview mirror and saw her standing there. My daughter. My dream. My reason for everything. And I cried. Not sad tears. Proud tears. Relief tears. Victory tears. She's going to be okay, my mother said softly. She's going to be more than okay, I said. She's going to be extraordinary. 6 weeks later, the final restitution check arrived. $24,000. When I added it to the previous payments, the total came to $81,947. More than I'd lost. Enough to secure Amara's full 4 years at Hampton with careful budgeting and her scholarships. I gathered all the victims together one last time. We met at a restaurant, all 13 families who'd been hurt by Richard and Veronica Hayes. We shared a meal. We talked about what we'd do with our restored funds. We cried a little. We laughed a lot. And we celebrated something that had seemed impossible a year ago. We'd won. I got a letter last week, Agnes said during dinner. From Veronica. From prison. The table went quiet. What did it say? Michelle asked. It was an apology. 5 pages. She said she thinks about what she did every day. That she's ashamed. That she knows sorry isn't enough, but she needed to say it anyway. She said seeing us all in court, hearing our stories, it broke something in her. Made her realize what she'd become. Do you believe her? Someone asked. Agnes thought about it. I don't know. Maybe. Prison changes people, I suppose. But whether she's truly sorry or not, that's not my burden to carry anymore. I forgave her. Not for her sake, for mine. So I could move forward without that anger eating me alive. I understood what she meant. I'd been carrying so much anger for so long. But somewhere between the guilty plea and watching Amara unpack in her dorm room, that anger had transformed into something else. Peace. Closure. The knowledge that justice had been served and my daughter's future was secure. I got a letter too, I admitted. From Richard. Just 2 sentences. I'm sorry for what I did to you and Amara. I hope someday you can forgive me. Will you? My mother asked. I don't know. Maybe someday. But right now, I don't need to forgive him to be happy. I'm happy anyway. That's what freedom feels like. 3 months into Amara's first semester, I visited her at Hampton. She gave me a tour of campus, introduced me to her friends, showed me her favorite study spots. Over lunch in the cafeteria, she told me about her classes. Biology. Chemistry. Psychology. She was thriving. Straight A's. Already talking about medical school. Mama, my biology professor asked me to be a teaching assistant next semester. Me. A freshman. That's because you're brilliant, baby. No, she said seriously. It's because you showed me what hard work looks like, what persistence looks like, what it means to never give up even when everything seems impossible. You taught me that. Later, walking across campus, she said something that made me stop in my tracks. Mama, I've been thinking. When I become a doctor, I want to work in underserved communities. I want to help people like us. People who work multiple jobs. Single mothers. People who sacrifice everything for their families. I want to give back what you gave me. I looked at my daughter, this brilliant young woman who understood that privilege comes with responsibility. That receiving help means helping others. Your patients are going to be so lucky to have you, I said. That night, driving back home, I thought about the journey. 8 years of sacrifice. The betrayal. The fight for justice. The victory. And now this. Amara pursuing her dreams. My mother's retirement fund restored. 13 families made whole again. It wasn't a perfect ending. Richard and Veronica were still in prison, their lives destroyed by their own greed. Their families still carried the shame and the loss. The time we'd all spent fighting couldn't be recovered. But we'd survived. We'd fought back. And we'd won. 2 years later, I received a call from Detective Torres. Kenya, I thought you'd want to know. Richard and Veronica filed for divorce last month. In prison. Apparently, they've been blaming each other for everything. The stress of incarceration broke their marriage. That's sad, I said. And I meant it. Not in a schadenfreude way. Just, genuinely sad that people who'd once loved each other had destroyed everything, including each other. There's something else, the detective said. Your case became a training example. We use it to teach other victims how to document financial abuse, how to gather evidence, how to fight back. You saved a lot of people by showing them it's possible to win. After I hung up, I sat on my back porch with my evening coffee. The same porch where I used to sit exhausted after triple shifts. The same porch where I'd cried when I discovered the theft. The same porch where I'd planned my fight. But it felt different now. Peaceful. Earned. Mine. My phone buzzed. A text from Amara. Mama, I got an A on my organic chemistry exam. Top score in the class. Call you tonight. Love you. I smiled, tears in my eyes. 8 years ago, I'd promised my 10-year-old daughter that she'd go to college. That I'd make it happen no matter what. Someone tried to steal that promise. Tried to steal her future and my sacrifice and all those years of work, but they couldn't. Because some things can't be stolen. Faith, persistence, love, the absolute refusal to let cruelty win. Veronica and Richard took my money. But they couldn't take my fight. They couldn't take my daughter's brilliance. They couldn't take our future. And in the end, that's what mattered. The lesson? When someone tries to steal your dreams, you don't just fight for yourself. You fight for everyone they've hurt. You document everything. You find your people. You use the system. You refuse to be silenced or gaslight or defeated. And you win. Not just in court. Not just financially. But in the way that matters most. You reclaim your dignity. You rebuild your future. You show your children that justice is possible when good people refuse to give up. That's what I did. That's what we all did. And I'd do it again in a heartbeat. Because my daughter is going to be a doctor. And nobody can steal that. Thank you for walking this difficult road with me to the very end. If this story resonated with you, you can support our community by sending a super thanks. It helps me continue to bring these important stories to light. On the screen now are 2 more stories that I know will touch your soul. I'll see you in the next one. Stay strong.